said, not even looking up from his desk. Linda and the twins need me. You're 22, you can handle yourself. I stood in his corner office at Henderson Manufacturing, the company my grandfather had built, watching my father choose his new wife and stepchildren over me. It's my college graduation, Dad, I said quietly. Mom would have dash. Don't. He cut me off sharply. Linda's planning a trip to Europe with the twins. They need this bonding time. You understand. I did understand. I understood perfectly. Since Mom died 3 years ago and he'd married Linda 6 months later, I'd understood more than they realized. Of course, I replied, straightening my shoulders. The twins' high school graduation next year is more important than my MBA from Harvard. He finally looked up, irritation crossing his features. Emma, you're being childish. Besides, with that fancy degree, shouldn't you be looking for a job instead of expecting family celebrations? I smiled, thinking of the investment firm I'd already founded with my inheritance from Mom, the one they knew nothing about. You're right, Dad. I should focus on business. 10 years later, I sat in my own corner office, this one occupying the top floor of the gleaming Griffin Capital building. My phone buzzed with a familiar number, Henderson Manufacturing's main line. Ms. Griffin, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your father's office is calling. It's the 5th time today. I glanced at the financial reports on my screen. Henderson Manufacturing's steady decline laid out in brutal detail. A decade of mismanagement, outdated practices, and Linda's extravagant business expenses had taken their toll. Put him through, I said, touching the frame of Mom's photo on my desk. She'd always said success was the best revenge, but patience made it sweeter. Emma. Dad's voice sounded older, strained. We need to talk. About the company's imminent bankruptcy? I kept my tone professional. Or about the fact that Linda's twins have run their divisions into the ground? Silence filled the line. Then, how did you know about Dash? I make it my business to know these things, I replied. After all, Griffin Capital specializes in corporate acquisitions and restructuring. Your company's failure has been fascinating to watch. Emma, please, he almost whispered. We need investors. The bank. They recommended your firm. They said you're the best. I looked out my window at the city skyline, remembering all the family dinners I'd missed, all the holidays spent alone while they vacationed in Europe, all the achievements they'd ignored. Interesting, I said softly. Now you need your old family's money. Shall we meet to discuss terms? I'm sure Linda and the twins would love to see my office. The silence stretched again before he answered. Tomorrow at 9? Perfect. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Oh, and Dad? Tell Linda to wear comfortable shoes. My office is on the 68th floor, and I'm having the executive elevator service tomorrow. Such a shame about the timing. I hung up before he could respond, turning back to my computer to prepare for tomorrow's meeting. On my screen, Henderson Manufacturing's stock price continued its downward spiral. Ms. Griffin, my assistant called. Should I prepare the standard acquisition documents? No, I replied, opening my private files. Prepare the special ones. The ones we've been saving for exactly this moment. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. At precisely 9 a.m., I watched through my office's glass walls as my father, Linda, and the twins Michael and Madison trudged down the hallway, sweating and disheveled from climbing 68 flights of stairs. Linda's Louboutins dangled from her fingers, her perfectly styled hair now a mess. Water. I offered innocently as they collapsed into the chairs facing my desk. You all look flushed. The elevator dash, Linda started, but I cut her off. Is working perfectly now. Remarkable timing. I smiled, remembering all the family events they'd accidentally scheduled when I was overseas on business. I do hope the climb didn't tire you too much. We have a long meeting ahead. Dad wiped his forehead with a handkerchief, taking in my office, the wall of industry awards, the views of the city, the subtle displays of wealth that made Linda's designer handbag look like a cheap knockoff. Emma, he began, we didn't know your company. Griffin Capital? I finished for him. Yes, quite a surprise, isn't it? Almost as surprising as discovering your company is 3 months from complete collapse. I touched my desk surface, activating the wall screens. Henderson Manufacturing's financial disaster played out in high-definition charts and graphs. Let's see, I continued, pulling up more data. Michael's division lost $30 million last year on failed projects. Madison's marketing campaigns have become industry jokes. And Linda's consulting fees, fascinating accounting there. Madison straightened in her chair, attempting dignity despite her disheveled state. You don't understand the challenges, Dash. Actually, I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I understand how you convinced Dad to make you marketing director straight out of college, despite having no experience. Just like I understand how Michael became operations manager because he's family. Tao, wait a minute, Dad protested, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled up more documents. Shall we discuss the company condo in Paris? The one Linda uses for business meetings that mysteriously coincide with Fashion Week? Or the private jet Michael insists is for client relations but seems to only fly to Caribbean resorts? Linda's face flushed darker than her post-climb glow. Those are legitimate business, Dash. Expenses that have bankrupted a century-old company, I finished. Grandfather would be so proud. The mention of my grandfather, the company's founder, made Dad flinch. Good. The bank recommended us for a reason, I continued. Griffin Capital specializes in difficult cases. Though usually the difficulty is market conditions, not family incompetence. Please, Dad said quietly. We need help. I stood, walking to the window. Below, I could see the old Henderson manufacturing building, its once proud sign now faded. Funny how family priorities change when money's involved. Suddenly your old family becomes relevant again. That's not fair, Linda protested. We've always considered you, Dash. Part of the family? I turned back, raising an eyebrow. Like when you scheduled the twins' graduation party the same day as my wedding. Or when you forgot to mention Dad's heart surgery until 3 weeks after he came home. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of my office systems and Madison's uncomfortable shifting in her chair. Here's my offer, I said, sending documents to the screens. Griffin Capital will acquire Henderson Manufacturing. We'll stabilize the company, modernize operations, and restore its reputation. But there are conditions. Michael leaned forward. What kind of conditions? I smiled, thinking of all the family dinners where they'd ignored my presence. First, you and Madison resign. Immediately. No golden parachutes, no consulting positions, no family favors. You can't, Dash, Linda began. I can and I will. I pulled up more documents. Second, Linda's consulting position ends. Along with the credit cards, company cars, and all those lovely perks you've enjoyed while bleeding the company dry. Dad stood up, anger finally breaking through his desperation. Now see here, Dash. No, Dad, you see here. I projected one final document, Mom's original ownership shares, which I'd inherited. Did you forget? Mom owned 30% of Henderson Manufacturing. I've been a major shareholder all along. I just waited until you needed me more than I needed you. The silence in my office felt electric as my family processed the reality of their situation. Through the windows, storm clouds gathered over the city, a fitting backdrop for this moment 10 years in the making. Those shares were supposed to be dormant, Linda whispered, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. Really? I touched my desk again, bringing up years of board meeting minutes. Interesting theory. Tell me, when exactly did you plan to inform me about the illegal attempts to dilute Mom's shares? The ones I blocked through shell companies you never traced. Michael stood up, pacing nervously. This is ridiculous. Dad, you can't let her, Dash. Let me. I laughed softly. Dad can't let me do anything. While you were all playing at being executives, I was building an empire. Griffin Capital owns most of your company's debt. We control your suppliers. We even own the building you're in. The building. Dad's face paled. But we have a 30-year lease. With Riverside Properties, I nodded. A Griffin Capital subsidiary. Amazing how much you can accomplish when your family doesn't invite you to holiday dinners. Leaves a lot of time for business. I pulled out a thick folder, the acquisition agreement I'd spent years preparing. Here's how this works. Henderson Manufacturing becomes a Griffin Capital company. Dad stays on as chairman emeritus, a figurehead role with no actual power. The twins and Linda exit completely. And if we refuse? Linda's voice shook despite her attempt at defiance. Then I call your loans due tomorrow. All of them. The company declares bankruptcy, the truth about your mismanagement becomes public, and your reputation in the business world ends. I smiled. Oh, and those trust funds you set up for the twins using company money? I've already frozen them. Madison burst into tears, her expensive makeup running. But where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? Get real jobs. I suggested. Learn the meaning of actual work. Novel concept, I know. Dad sank back into his chair, looking older than his 60 years. Emma, please, we're family. Family. I stood up, walking to Mom's photo on my desk. Like when you skipped my Harvard graduation for the twins' high school awards ceremony. Or when Linda redecorated Mom's house, throwing away her things because they didn't match the new aesthetic. Thunder rumbled outside as I continued. Or maybe you mean family like the time I was hospitalized after my car accident, and you were all too busy on your Mediterranean cruise to visit? We sent flowers, Linda offered weakly. To the wrong hospital, I corrected. You couldn't even be bothered to check where I actually was. I opened the folder, spreading out the documents. Sign, and Henderson Manufacturing survives under Griffin Capital's management. Refuse and watch everything you've taken for granted disappear. You'd destroy your father's company? Michael challenged. No, I replied calmly. You already did that. I'm offering to save it, just not for you. One by one they signed. Dad's hand trembled as he added his signature last, officially ending his control of the company his father had built. Tao what? Linda asked, her voice small. Now. I pressed a button on my desk. Security will escort you out. Your company phones, credit cards, and keys have already been deactivated. The company cars will be collected this afternoon. But where will we go? Madison whimpered. I hear the bus stop is just 68 flights down, I replied. Better hurry, looks like rain. As security led them out, Dad paused at the door. I never meant to. To what, Dad? To throw away your first family for your second? To let Linda erase Mom's memory? To miss every important moment of my life? He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry. I know, I said softly. But sorry doesn't change the past decade. It just makes the present more ironic. After they left, I stood at my window watching them emerge from the building far below. The rain had started, and I could see Linda struggling with her broken designer heel. The twins huddling under a newspaper, all their carefully maintained appearances washing away. My assistant entered quietly. The transition team is ready, Ms. Griffin. Should we begin the company takeover? Yes, I replied, touching Mom's photo. And Sarah? Have someone pack up Dad's office. He can collect his personal items next week, after he's completed the 68-flight climb again. The storm intensified outside, but in my office, everything was crystal clear. 10 years ago, Dad had chosen his new family over his old one. Now, as they stood in the rain waiting for a taxi, I wondered if he finally understood the cost of that choice. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about standing at your window 68 floors up, watching karma rain down on those who thought they could write you out of the family story. One more thing, I called to Sarah. Send a company-wide email. Henderson Manufacturing is now Griffin Industries. It's time to restore my grandfather's legacy under its rightful heir. After all, Dad had always said his